All right, we'll see you next
All
week,
right,
Adam.
take care, Adam.
All
See
right,
you around.
thanks. Take care, guys. See ya.
Thank God we got rid of that fucking scumbag. Jesus Christ. I'm sorry about that, everyone. I'm sorry about that. We didn't want him to come. We didn't want him here. She showed up. We didn't think he was gonna come. We didn't even give him the link. I don't even know how we got here, but now we can get on to the real show.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to the SmeshCast. It is Smesh Sunday. We are fresh off the fights. Conor McGregor, Dustin Porier, and Dustin Porier coming out with a second round TKO finish of Conor McGregor. Crazy night. We also had Michael Chandler knocking out Dan Hooker in the co-main event. We had a huge night for the 155-pound division. Boys, let's get it started.
Watching Conor get knocked out is one of the most surreal moments of my life.
Yes.
Yeah, seriously.
Without a doubt. I have I've got respect for Conor the fighter. Conor the fighter is an absolute legend. You'd be a fucking idiot to not respect Conor the fighter. But I don't love the guy. I don't like that he brought in the whole kind of big ego era of the UFC, the whole big shit talkers era, everyone trying to be Conor. I don't like that. But as much as I don't love the persona, he's the best one at it. He carries himself like a god, and you feel like he is a god when he's just, Mystic Mac, he's like fucking Nostradamus in there. But so watching him out on the canvas like that, and really out, when those shots Dustin were throwing, especially one of them as he was going down,
brutal.
Yeah,
the right hand.
He was fully out. And that's really was something else to see. It really took away, sadly for Conor, it took away a lot of mystique about him and a lot of that, that aura that they talk about.
Yeah.
I think it hurts. It's gonna hurt him a lot.
Yeah,
especially back.
Yeah, for sure. Especially because even though he does have solid jiu-jitsu, when he gets tapped out, once by Khabib and once by Nate, you're like, okay, this might be his weak point of the game. But the fact that he got knocked out, he got beaten at his own game striking, it's completely different. And there's something to me personally that's bittersweet about it, because I was really gunning for Conor to win this. But Dustin is just he's one of the nicest guys in the sport. So you can't feel bad about him winning at all.
Of course.
But yeah, it was rough to watch.
Yeah, F's in the chat for Adam, everyone. F's in the chat.
Yeah, it was really a sight that I didn't expect to really see until maybe in the fourth, fifth round, maybe Conor just got too tired, was kind of battered. Mm-hmm. I almost expected if Dustin got the TKO finish, it would kind of be like that Nate round in that second fight where he had him pinned against the fence and he was just unloading on him. That's kind of how I expected it to go if Dustin got the finish. This was really a sight I didn't expect to see until Conor fought Manny. I thought Manny would flatline him, if I'm being honest. Because Manny is
of course.
Manny is not Floyd Mayweather. Manny will come at you and Manny will end your night. And Conor is not up to Manny's level as much as he may say he is in shit talk, as we saw against Poirier.
Anyone who thinks that he's up to that level as a boxer is
wrong.
Absolutely out to lunch.
Exactly. So that was it was absolutely not a sight I expected to see. Good on Poirier. He ate those legs up. That leg got destroyed by those calf kicks. It was I remember seeing at the start of the second round, they threw up a graphic 11-1 with the leg strikes for Poirier over Conor. And it was just I was telling the people I was watching with my roommate, my girlfriend, I was telling them you now Conor can't land that left anymore to the same degree, because he can't lean on that leg. He can't throw that hand with full intention like he usually can. He can't stalk and balance and go back and forth. He only has one leg, and I think that really is what ended the night. And as you were saying, it's different when Conor has that tap. When he gets tired, you kind of say, okay, Conor lost. He just kind of got tired out. That kind of happens. That's kind of how Conor is, and he kind of gives up sometimes, maybe with the chokes. Mm-hmm. But for him to be knocked out, as you guys said, and to see him on the floor unconscious, basically, and just completely out of it, that was something else.
that was nobody expected that ending. And I think like I'm eating my fucking words, because last week I was very confident that Conor was getting that knockout, and like everyone was, all the commentators, everyone was saying, this is Conor's fight, he's gonna knock him out. And to his credit, coming out, especially that first engagement, like right after the first round started, Conor was throwing some heat, and he was throwing heat the whole time. I was worried for Dustin because he was landing some bad, powerful shots.
And he said he got hurt, by the way. He admitted in the press conference, he said, yeah, he hurt me. And if he had followed up, I would have been really hurt. Kind of hinting that Conor could have finished him.
The other thing was that it wasn't like a TKO where, Conor's turtling and he's hitting strikes, and Herb just steps in because there's not a chance that Conor can just stand up. Like Conor he was out. He was fully out. And that's crazy because, like you said, like him having this sort of godlike image and then seeing the godlike image fall, it's just crazy to see.
Yeah, the mighty have fallen. But phenomenal for Poirier to get that, to win this rematch after there's got to be so much pressure on him for this. I mean, anytime you're fighting Conor, there's so much pressure because like your social media is flooded by like some of the most obnoxious shit that you've ever seen in your life. I see people out there saying Dustin Porier, who? Like I had my friends who don't really watch so much who were like, oh yeah, Conor's gonna fucking starch him. It's like it's not even a chance. So that's got to be very validating for Poirier to hear. And even after the fight, he said, as far as I'm concerned, I'm the champion. And as far as I'm concerned, that's the truth. I think he's the best guy in the division right now.
Yeah, I agree.
And that this really put a stamp on that.
Yeah, I think that the thing is, I think Noah, you and I were kind of in the same boat coming into this, where we both kind of were edging Conor in terms of who we thought was going to win. But we both really wanted Poirier to win. Adam, you're not quite in that boat. But we were like, I love Poirier as a person, as a father, as an individual, and as a fighter. He's a fighter's fighter, right? He's a blood and guts fighter who brings it to you. He doesn't stop. He gets hit, knocked down. He keeps coming. He almost doesn't get knocked down, to be completely honest. When he gets hit. But he's just the greatest guy outside the cage. Tons of charity work, an amazing father, amazing husband. And so we just kind of wanted it to happen for him. It was so heartbreaking to see him after the Khabib fight, to see him lose. I really wanted him to win this, and it was so nice to see him have that. In terms of what you were saying with the social media, I think it was very similar to that first fight, right? They both there was a social media storm was definitely massive in both fights. All the pressure was kind of against him in both fights. But Dustin's a different person now than he was 6-7 years ago, right? Dustin is now, he is a father. He's a mature individual. He's a dad and he says he's sure of himself. So he doesn't care if some random person doesn't know who he is, because Dustin knows who he is. Exactly. And Dustin's, and you could see that when he went into the cage, he was confident, and he had a quiet confidence. Even in the press conferences, he played his cards close to the chest, but he was still confident. He was still happy to be there. He just didn't engage necessarily all that much with others. One thing I wanted to mention before I throw it back to you guys, he was saying in the press conference a lot, he doesn't like this stuff anymore. He said after the fight, I don't even like this anymore. And he said at the press conference, he hated all the buildup. The training camp's training camp. That's all a blur. He locks himself in, whatever. But the whole travel, the quarantine, the media, the this, the that, everything, he hated everything except for the fight itself. The entire trip he despised, and he was not happy. But yet he performed to maybe his best performance of his career.
Yeah, pays off. Sometimes you don't like the hard work that you have to put in, but at the end of the day, you still reap the rewards.
And there's something to be said for also the impact that quarantine's having and the pandemic's having on these fighters as well. The preparation, everything, it's got to be so much more difficult. For this scenario, it's not just them traveling to Abu Dhabi. There's the quarantine that they have to do to do these fights is unbelievable. Like they have to be completely isolated for a much longer time than like regular person would. There's so many hassles associated with traveling in general, and now you're doing it this year where things are really very, very messy. And I'm not surprised that it's probably more difficult this time around for a lot of people to maybe muster up some of the confidence that they have when they're talking to the media, or to even just pay it the attention they need to. It's got to be, everything's harder. It's harder for everyone to do everything this year. So just the training aspect alone, that probably wipes them full of like all their energy that they would in a regular year be investing towards marketing and media relations and all the little behind the scenes things that I'm sure that they don't love to do. It's not their favorite part unless you're Conor McGregor, but it's an important part. So I've no doubt that he hated that whole process this time around, but I don't think it's indicative of any kind of future trend with him. The guy loves to fight. He's doing great things for his foundation that he wouldn't be able to do at this point, if he wasn't, at this position in the UFC. So, hopefully next time around is a little easier for him. Maybe he fights in the States next time, and that would definitely ease that burden on him. But no, I'm not surprised by that at all. It's tough times.
It makes sense. I will say, I don't know about you guys. I kind of felt like he might have kind of missed a shot a little bit with his lack of call out. I know he had that really focused energy and he was very mellow coming into it, but coming out of it, he was also very mellow. He didn't seem as hyped, and as I just feel like if he had just celebrated and gotten really into it and just hyped, like he had that really emotional release when he knocked out Justin Gaethje, for example, if he had that kind of a reaction, I felt like it would have had a more powerful, more lasting impact with the fans. And if he had a bit more of a call out, if he called out a name, or if he, I don't know, there was something about it just being very matter of fact and very chill. It felt like he missed a little bit of a shot. He could have done something that was a little bit more memorable.
So you would have liked it if he swapped his if he and Chandler swapped their post fights. You know what? Actually, I think I disagree with you. I think that Poirier is kind of too cool for school kind of energy that he was bringing up there.
Yeah.
I think that it works particularly well after a Conor fight to be able to walk away from that and be like, just like, ice cold confidence. Just like, yeah, I did that. I didn't expect any different. Why would you expect any different? And, and even further than that, who cares about Conor? I've got this other important shit to talk about. I think that also, anything other than what he's doing would not be genuine. Poirier doesn't strike me as an actor. He's not a guy. Conor is an actor. He can put on a character. A lot of guys can put on characters. Adesanya is another guy who can put on a very strong character. Poirier is just genuine. I think Poirier is just himself. And I think that it would be painfully obvious if he was trying to do anything other than that at this point. I think he's just got to be himself. And I think that, he's already, he's by no means a small name. He has, at least 1 million followers on Instagram last I checked. He's the top of the division. He just beat Conor, so obviously everyone knows him regardless of what he says. At this point, he can just...
by the way, he made $1 million purse for this fight, plus some pay-per-view points. I don't know what the degree of that. This is what Forbes is reporting: $1 million purse plus pay-per-view points.
Glad to hear you got that.
Feed your family, my man. Wanted. Big dog gotta eat.
About time. Oh. But yeah, Poirier's he's just doing himself. And after a win like that over a fighter like Conor, it speaks for itself. I don't think he had to really call anyone out. And plus, there's really like who is there for it? There's very few people for him to call out right now. So like we know who his next matchups could potentially be.
I feel like he could have called out Gaethje. That would be fucking amazing.
That would feel weird for me to beat Gaethje once and then call him out a second time and be like, hey, I'm not done with you. Why do we got to keep teaching you this lesson, old man? I don't know about that.
I kind of agree with Noah because I feel like him knocking out Conor, like that was his statement. He's like, this is me putting the lightweight division on notice. Look what I just did to everybody. So like, I don't need to call anybody out. But just speaking about the fight specifically, just to go back a little bit, I think Dustin had a brilliant game plan, chop up the legs, and then move closer to the head. Like that was brilliant. But for Conor, he was just like, he didn't seem comfortable and like the calm that he usually is. It seemed like he was trying to strictly box, maybe mix in a couple kicks, but like when he fought Eddie, there was kind of just like a restfulness and a calmness in his fighting style, and I didn't see that this time around.
Aura.
Like, yeah, the aura and like the way that he countered his shots in the Eddie fight was very different from him countering his shots in this fight. And you have to give most of the credit to Dustin because that was just Dustin coming forward and being the man. But it was just he was performing not like he usually does, I don't think.
I mean, I don't know if that's I agree that it didn't look like he usually does, but I don't know if that's necessarily Conor not being to the level, or more so the effect of the leg kicks. I think Conor came out like he usually does. In fact, you saw at the beginning of the fight, Conor came out before Herb Dean even started the fight. Herb Dean pushed him back, and he did it again. And Herb Dean says, "Whatever, fuck it, just let him come in, and let's just start the fight." Weird. Right? He was being hyper aggressive. That's Conor. That's how he fights. But when he takes that front leg damage, he can't lean forward. He can't have that shift of balance that you need in order to slip and counter like he usually does. It was really the damage that Poirier had done to him, and the fact that Poirier, what was the first thing he did in the fight? He took him down, right? He put him on notice in terms of don't leave your legs open, and B, he put him on notice in terms of just tiring him out a little bit, putting some energy, some blood into those arms, those legs, just get him a little bit tired, and then start eating up at that leg. He did everything he needed to. Perfect game plan, perfect execution of the game plan of just get Conor to where he's still Conor, but his weapons aren't quite as potent, right? They're not quite as lethal as they usually are. And then
not sharp. He's not as sharp right now as he might be regularly. And I just want to also go back to that takedown. That first takedown was so seamless, so effortless by the looks of it, so flawless. That must have exactly. It's all in the timing, and that must have hurt Conor's. Because Conor, that, like I said earlier, that first exchange, that really probably added a lot of confidence to him, showing him, I'm still here as a boxer. But getting taken down that easily and that swiftly by Dustin, he was not happy. He was not happy that happened. And
this is not
that
Cowboy.
kind of thing. Yeah, that gets into his head. And Conor, I don't know how often people talk about it, but I imagine, a guy who uses that mental warfare so often and so, flawlessly in the past, he's that ego, that confidence, it's a vulnerability in itself. You show him that, that you get that takedown so early and so quickly, especially with the narrative going around that, if Dustin wins this, it's going to be off of his wrestling. Conor knows that shit. He hears that shit. So actually having that happen so easily to him, he's going to think, oh shit, how's this going to go down later in the fight? If he got that takedown easily right away, Roey's about to counter me. Roey's about to flex on me. Roey's about to flex on me.
Chad Mendes fight. Chad Mendes took him down numerous times. In fact, Chad Mendes for the last 2 minutes of the first round was holding him down, and Conor couldn't get up. You remember that, Adam?
Yeah.
Right. Why?
Fair, this is Conor's first fight back in a very long time. I know, but he's already feeling a little compromised.
But the other thing is like Eddie Alvarez is a fantastic wrestler too, but like the Chad coming into that fight on 2 weeks' notice, we knew Chad was going to wrestle, so it was like what are you doing, Conor? Right, you should have prepared for this. But Eddie's a wrestler too. But since they had time to prepare for each other, like I think it was more acceptable that they were striking most of the time, him and Eddie. But for this too, like it seemed like it didn't seem like Dustin had the game plan to completely just take him down the entire time, out grapple him, and then submit him. Like it seemed like Dustin wanted to strike with him.
Yeah, he was just mixing it up, keeping
and as you said, just tiring him out. What I really liked about that is I was watching it and I just really wanted that 60-second prediction not to come true. So I was just looking at the clock when he took him down. Like, come on, just hold him down. Another 20 seconds. Come on, you got this. You got this. Oh, yeah, 60 seconds. We're good, boys. We're good. And then he kicks the leg. He's like, all right. He's surviving. He's putting in some damage. He's okay. The shoulder strikes.
Okay, is it possible that he took him down just to get out of the 60 seconds?
I think it's
honestly
fully
think
possible.
So.
I hope
Maybe.
so. And I'm happy with it, man. That I was just so
No,
happy.
no, yeah.
60 seconds not happening.
Totally fair to him, but that was just a thought that I had, that I think he truly actually took him down just to get out of the 60 seconds.
And I think that goes into that mental warfare and that thing that Noah, you were saying, with that aura sometimes, or that arrogance sometimes, is actually being your own downfall. Because when all of his predictions, when he's Mystic Mac and he says, I'm going to knock out Poirier in the first round, and then he does it, happens. He does this, and everything he says is going to happens.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, oh shit. And maybe he starts, he starts believing his own hype. He starts liking the smell of his own shit, and then all of a sudden Poirier says, okay, that's your prediction. Let's start off we don't need to beat you yet. Your prediction isn't happening and you have no chance of it. And McGregor doesn't even have the chance of just like going ham on him and attacking. No, he's holding him down. He has to work his way back to the feet. He's like, okay, my first prediction isn't true. The aura isn't there anymore. You're not Mystic Mac anymore. You're just another man. And that's what Poirier said. The aura wasn't quite there. He felt like he was fighting another man who bleeds just like him. Those were the words that Poirier used in the post-fight. And that's kind of what he reminded McGregor by surviving that first minute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really just brought him down to earth. And, I'm wondering, another aspect of this that comes to my mind. I don't know. I think we kind of looked over that little tweet that Khabib made at Conor after the fight. Didn't really mention Conor by name, but it's obviously about him. And he said, basically, this is what happens when you get rid of your regular training partners. And he basically accused Conor of working with a bunch of yes men. And, we know he runs his own camp, basically. Like everyone, people close to him say he basically is in control of everything. He doesn't have other people saying, this is what we're doing today. Conor says, this is what I'm doing today. And it's boxing. And I'm going to do it every day. Conor needs to get some younger, fresher training partners who are more in tune with the way that the game is working today, because that leg, I'm going to, I guess, to talk about it like a video game, that leg kick meta is powerful. You need to, leg kicks can take someone, from, up to like an elite level if they can mix them in a very compelling way. And that's what Dustin did. That's why he won with, such ease, in the second round by the looks of it. So, you need to develop that. And Conor, is from an era where those leg kicks were not used as effectively. They were not, used to their full potential that we see them today. And God, I'll tell you, just that when it comes to like the whole leg kick meta as a general concept in the UFC, I find it so interesting. Just how for so many years people have been neglecting this thing that seems so inconsequential. Like leg kicks, who cares about a leg kick? Let's get a body shot or something.
Yeah.
But to see that it is arguably one of the most effective, like long-term kind of weapons that you can plan your game around. Just spend that first round working the leg. They sit, I can't imagine how it feels to sit down between rounds and then stand back up. And that's when you notice it. That's when you see, oh shit, my leg feels like a ship anchor. Like,
yeah, it sounds horrible.
Yeah, I find it so compelling.
I apologize. I have to interrupt. I have to get going.
No worries.
Congratulations to Dustin. Hope to see both him and Conor back. But in my, I think in all our eyes, Dustin is the champion. So
exactly. But
best
trilogy
wishes
fight
moving forward. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, let's see it. All right, we'll see you next week,
right,
Adam.
Take care, Adam.
All right, thanks. Take care, guys. See ya.
Thank God we got rid of that fucking scumbag. Jesus Christ. I'm sorry about that, everyone. I'm sorry about that. We didn't want him to come. We didn't want him here. She showed up. We didn't think he was going to come. We didn't even give him the link. I don't even know how we got here, but now we can get on to the real show.
I was gonna say, so you actually had a question that you asked before the show started that we put in the notes that I think you actually kind of touched on right there, which was, is this worse Conor, or is this the same Conor? Right? Is Conor as good as he used to be? Is he better than he used to be, or is he just not quite what he used to be? And I think the answer to that question is we don't really know, obviously. But even I think Conor might be as good as he used to be, but the game caught up. Yeah. And that's the difference. It's not necessarily that he got worse. He might have been able to keep at that same level. But when you take 4 years off the sport effectively with only, or 5 years with one fight in the UFC.
Handful of fights, yeah.
You know, he had one fight, the Khabib fight. It was the only fight since 2016.
Yeah,
and until before the Cowboy fight,
exhibition match though.
But the game catches up. There's so much evolution in such a young sport that in 4 or 5 years the game changes. And what's the biggest thing that happened over the last 4 or 5 years? The calf kicks, not necessarily leg kicks in general, and the calf kick specifically has really taken over the sport. And Conor has been away for that entire time. Meanwhile, as Dustin Poirier said, he ate those calf kicks against Jim Miller for 3 rounds, and he knew from that fight how effective they were. He's watched Gaethje fight. He's had the chance to use them and fight against them in these 4 or 5 years, and Conor hasn't. And that was really the difference maker. That Poirier evolved, and Conor stayed the same.
Exactly, and that classic Conor stance, that wide stance where your front leg is very much out in front, that ninja stance. That's just not viable at this point. You know, that's such a vulnerable position for your leg. It can be if you're Wonder Boy. If Conor is as evasive as he's ever been before, but he's not. It's that speed and reaction time. That's the first thing that starts to really go with your age. I'm not saying he's aged out of that, but he's not sharp. Is really all there is. He's just not sharp, right?
Which could be the training, right? Yeah, he's taking a lot of time off the sport, but also maybe he's not training with the right training partners. That could also be it.
He did say in the post-fight interview, which, by the way, I want to talk about that in a second as a general concept, but he did say that the ring rust is very real, and the lack of experience is a real killer in this, and in so much as the game has evolved past him, that actually that exactly it. He wasn't evolving with the game. If he had stayed active and fought 2-3 times a year against other active fighters, he would have evolved alongside the game. He would be that Conor 2.0 that we were all kind of wondering about tonight. I think everyone had it in their mind, could this be the new calm, collected, cool, absolute death row inmate killer Conor? And it wasn't. It kind of defied a lot of our expectations in a lot of ways. But that ring rust is real. And that's the entire reason. I mean, not the entire reason. He's also an egomaniac who runs his own, day-to-day training. So he's not prepared for what is new and fresh and young. He probably thinks there's the right way, the wrong way, and the Conor way. And the Conor way is the way that got me to the most successful, famous celebrity in all of combat sports. So, I'm not surprised that this is the outcome, but I
don't think that's he's going to improve. I don't think that's necessarily the case. Just about this is the Conor way. This is how I got to the level, because again, he has clearly changed his demeanor, his attitude in his pre-fight. And one thing I will give him credit for that he's always done really, really well is he takes losses really well. Khabib loss notwithstanding, because that's clearly his soft spot. That's his Achilles heel. He clearly he can't be the bigger man about that. But without not that situation notwithstanding, the Nate Diaz loss, for example, he takes it really, really well. He gives full credit to his opponent. He does not make excuses. He's a really, really good loser. And I will give him credit for that. And
as much as he fucks with people, you can tell he has immense respect for all of his competition. He really recognizes what they're bringing to the table. You really got to see that after that Nate Diaz loss. He had the utmost respect for everything about the way that he fights. So yeah, Conor is a great loser. Let me ask you something though, to pivot just a little bit. I don't think they should have interviewed him after that fight. I do not think that he should have been interviewed at that point. He
Yeah.
was concussed. He had just been knocked out. I know, you have Conor in there. You're going to take every day there. I don't put it on Anik at all. I feel like Dana would have been like, no matter what, you interview him. You get him on camera, you get him talking, no matter what. And he sounded fucked, like he was fucked up, especially toward as the interview went on, like right at the end, barely tell what he was saying. And he was repeating himself, talking about, it's the ring rust, and obviously he was very respectful and very cool, and he seemed like he was handling it well, but it was not the right time to interview him. It could have gone a lot worse. That could have gone very poorly.
Yeah, I think it was up to his team. I think I blame his team more than anything. I think his team should have been like, no. I think John Kavanagh is a guy who has enough respect, everyone knows who he is. He could have said, no. My fighter just took a knockout. He shouldn't be interviewed right now. I think that's what should have happened there. I understand why they did, because he is the name he is. And at the end of the day, luckily, he didn't make it a fool of himself. He was respectful. He was good. He might have insisted. I don't know what happened. I don't generally like, though, as you mentioned, fighters that are just being knocked out, as we saw with the classic DC crying meme that occurred because DC got knocked out and then was interviewed, and that should never have happened. That's why Joe doesn't interview knocked out fighters. Yeah, that's an interesting one. I'm not really sure. In this case, I think it's a bit of a weird one.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just like it went fine, but it has any time someone's been knocked out, there's a potential for it to be a very like if what happened to Cormier happened to like anyone other than Cormier, like someone just like some ranked sixth guy, they wouldn't be able to live that down. I don't think that they would. I don't think you'd live that down. Yeah. Unless you're like at the top of the top of the top of the top.
I mean, honestly, I don't think they should have interviewed Calvin Kattar last week. I think that was actually a worse case, in my opinion, actually, than the McGregor one. I think he took a lot more damage than McGregor did, even though McGregor might have had the more extreme, like in one instant, he might have been knocked out, whereas Kattar was never knocked out. But at the end of the day, Kattar took way more damage, can be way more influential in his career. I don't think Kattar should have been interviewed. And actually, if you looked at, there was a video one of the videos the UFC put out, was showing Dana's reaction during that fight, and he was a few times saying, "Oh my God, please! I want this to be stopped. Please stop the fucking fight." Herb, this last round can't go any faster for me. He went up to Hunter Campbell and he's like, "Man, this seems like one of those fights where the guy walks to the back and then fucking dies. Like, this is scaring the shit." He was so worried, you could see.
Yeah.
And he said, and he went to his team immediately when the fight was over. He went up to Kattar's team. He's like, "I don't want him fucking talking to anybody. I don't give a shit. Send him right to the hospital. That's where he's going immediately right now." And they're like, "Okay." And then they interviewed him after the fight.
Yeah, it's pretty egregious. On principle, I don't like when somebody's eggs are scrambled and you're trying to get them to talk in front of a microphone and a camera. Although I will say Dana's concern is purely out of liability. I don't think Dana gives a fuck.
No, I think it's both. It's both. He does on some level care about them.
I think it's maybe 60-40. It's up to you to decide which one is the 60. That's pretty dark. All right. So all right, let's move on. What a fight! What a great night. Moving it on, I guess, because I think we've kind of I think we've said all there is to say about this. Conor, welcome back. Sorry for your loss, but not
and
too sorry.
Congrats to Dustin Porier.
All right.
All right, moving on to the co-main event. We had Michael Chandler making his UFC debut, and he knocked out Dan the Hangman Hooker in the first round. It was a really interesting fight. I mean, Hooker really never got started. The whole fight seemed to be the same thing again and again. Chandler was just circling to his left, Hooker to his right, around the octagon again and again. Hooker occasionally throwing those leg kicks, both right and leg, inside-outside leg kicks, to kind of slow down Chandler, slow down that movement. But Chandler had a ton of aggression, a ton of pressure, throwing that overhand right again and again to the body. And eventually he followed it up with a left. Hooker was not prepared for it, and he got clipped. It was a hard shot. He got knocked out essentially, and that was it. That was the story.
Clobbered him. Well, look at us eating our words. 2 fights in a row. I had zero confidence in Michael Chandler. A tiny little bit of confidence, mostly out of the fact that like I said, they've been hyping it up for so long. And it's like, who is this guy? Right? I don't watch Bellator. I don't fucking give a fuck about that shit, you know? So, but goddamn, do I know who he is now? I think he's potentially the hardest hitter in the division. He put on, like, okay, let me put it this way. If you had told me that one of these guys, don't know which one, it's their UFC debut, and the other one has been comfortably fighting the toughest competition the UFC has to offer for a little while. He absolutely, Hooker seems like a brand new guy facing this weathered, and he is, a hardened, weathered fighter. It's almost like, he got to the octagon, and it's like you expect to be all nervous for your debut, and he just gets in there. It's like, oh yeah, this is nothing new. This is nothing new. I've done this before. I've been doing this. Why would this be any different? He was like, he was ready, and he is a dangerous competitor in this division now, because he almost. I'm sure that there's someone who is more technically knowledgeable about each individual fighter's strengths is probably going to have some kind of a problem with me saying this, but he kind of reminded me, just physically, of like Romero of the lightweight division. Just so physically imposing, barely has a neck. So how are you going to knock this man out? And he's just got this death zone in front of him, where it's like, if you let your guard down, if you get close to me, if you let something happen, I'm going to send the hardest punch in the entire world at you. And it's going to ruin speed. It's going to, and the speed, the explosiveness. Oh my God. It's that explosiveness too. And he's going to ruin your life. Like, Jesus. Hooker should not fight anytime soon, because he is compromised right now.
Speaking of that, there's a couple things I actually want to talk about that. Actually, before I even get into the potential retirement, which we should definitely absolutely talk about, he took his gloves off in the octagon.
Yeah, that's a weird one.
We got to talk about that. But before even that, something we were talking about him not fighting soon. Something that's been on my mind, I'm wondering whether or not that absolutely devastating war he had with Dustin Porier, what was that, in August? Maybe it was July, but it wasn't very much before then. So this is about 7-8 months ago, whether that had an effect on him, on his ability to take a punch here. Because that was the first punch that hit his face that whole fight. Fair, and he was not, punch, it was a big punch. You're right.
That punch, I think, would have put anybody out. But I don't know if anyone gets hit clean by that. Now, if the ability
he has a chin,
know that punch is coming,
Hooker usually has a chin.
But I don't know.
I don't know. It's a question.
That was
it
a
diminished?
Mighty shot. That was a harder shot than anything Conor or Poirier threw tonight, or last night rather.
Oh, you're right. You're right there.
I think the big thing is Hooker just being on the back foot the whole time and not seeming like prepared for. It's almost like all the nerves everyone expected Chandler to have going in, Hooker had. It's like it's got to be just as nerve-wracking thinking, I am the guy who's supposed to. He must have been, I'm sure, but inside there must be the thought of, just as I would expect someone to be nervous for their first time in the octagon, I got to put on a good show. It's like, oh my God, this guy's coming from another division. I need to beat him. I need to show the world that the UFC is on a different level. And that's got to be a whole hell of a lot of pressure in itself.
Oh, excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you, my friend.
Bless you.
That's a good point. It is a lot of pressure, but now when you look at where Hooker is, he's now coming off back-to-back losses, potentially for the first time in his career. I think definitely for the first time in his UFC career. He lost to two of the best in the division, absolutely, in Dustin Poirier and Michael Chandler. But he's taking a lot of damage. He took a beating against Edson Barboza, a beating against Dustin Poirier, a beating in the war with Paul Felder, and a brutal knockout here against Michael Chandler. He's not old, but he's on the other side of 30, and he took off. And look, he is a long way away from a title shot at this point, right? Two big losses. He's gonna be at least 3-4 fights away against top guys. He worked so hard to get here, and he's nowhere near. He has to climb the fucking hill again. He takes off his gloves in the octagon. They don't give him an interview. He got knocked out. I'm glad they didn't give him the interview, but I'm curious whether or not he comes back, and I don't know whether or not he should come back. I'm not sure. I understand either way. If he retires, I get it and I respect it, and I don't put any blame on him. And if he gets back up and he goes on Bisping, on like a Bisping, where he just works his way up one more time. You never know.
Yeah, these things happen.
These things do happen, but I do think I understand if he gives it up.
This is a you sit down and you think about this for a while, but I think the fact that he hasn't put out a definitive message yet says something. I actually kind of got a different read on the taking the gloves off. Maybe there's some more like historical significance to, I'm taking the gloves off and this is retirement. I almost saw it as kind of like, I feel like he feels like maybe he's just not even like he didn't live up to the expectations of like a UFC fighter. It's like, I'm not even worthy of being in the octagon right now, kind of thing. Like maybe I wonder if he just felt down on himself, and that was like a symbolic, like, I let the UFC down by letting this guy win.
This is
you think it's more like a retirement.
That's what it means, dude. No one takes off their glove in the octagon ever, unless it's for that. Like even people who take bad losses, that's not something they do. It's just they don't do that. He made a point to taking his gloves off. It was very clear that what he was doing. He was struggling with it
right after a major knockout.
I know. So that's the thing.
He's not thinking straight.
So the question for me was, is this something that was premeditated, where he said, if I lose this fight, I'm going to retire, and he just didn't make it public? Or was it something where he, in the moment, said, fuck it, I'm done? If it was a fuck it, I'm done, if it was a fuck it, I'm done, then absolutely he should take a lot of time, and I'm absolutely for him coming back. If it was premeditated, then absolutely I'm for it.
Yeah, I don't think it's premeditated, just based on the fact that, hurt or not, if it was premeditated, he would have had at least someone on his team go on his social media and probably make that announcement. At the very least, he's taking time to think about it. At the very least, it's like
he's taking time for sure.
He's taking time to, like, even if it was premeditated, he's not necessarily the move he's going to make.
Yep,
we don't know yet.
Fighters' retirements don't last, right?
Yeah. He needs to take some time off after that absolute craziness, and
actually,
just train, lightly, and recover.
Yeah, but speaking of fighter retirements don't last, this is now the big question that comes out of this, which is what's going on now in 155 with Khabib and his retirement. It does appear like Dana has finally admitted to the world that he is just bullshitting this whole time. There was nothing to the fucking statement that was said on Wednesday on ABC.
Who was a lie.
Cares? Or last Sunday, right? Saturday on ABC. I'm glad he's finally admitted Khabib is done. So what is going to happen for this title? Poirier says he does not want Chandler. Chandler does not deserve a title shot. He says, what has he done? He's had one fight in the UFC. He beat a guy who's coming off of a loss who I just beat. Why does he deserve it? He doesn't. I will not be fighting Michael Chandler next. So my question to you, first of all, let's start off with this. Does Michael Chandler deserve a title shot following his win over Dan Hooker?
It was a very compelling statement that he made with that fight. And it's tough to say because, he wasn't in there for too long. But he put on the big stamp, but we don't know how he's going to be in like a prolonged 5-round title fight. The problem is I don't see who he's going to take on next. I mean, so one of those two guys I think is going to fight. I guess, now that Oliveira's in the mix, that kind of shakes things up a little bit. I guess the question is who's fighting for the title next, of Oliveira or Gaethje, I guess, because that seems like who else is Dustin going to take on, if not one of those two?
Yeah.
So maybe Oliveira, Dustin, and then Chandler, Gaethje. That could be those. I would love to see Chandler Gaethje.
That's what I think.
That's a great matchup.
So absolutely, that's what I think makes the most sense for the division. Because here's my thing. I mean, Gaethje just came off of his loss to Khabib. Poirier was coming off a loss to Khabib, and he had to go through both Dan Hooker and Conor McGregor to get back to a title shot. Gaethje doesn't deserve it right away. And Gaethje already has a loss to Poirier. I think Gaethje doesn't deserve it right away. I think Poirier, so it's not Gaethje. Chandler, so we leave Chandler and Oliveira. Well, Michael Chandler has one win over Dan Hooker. And I guess actually, let's start with this. And I asked you this earlier. What do you value more as of 2 months ago, before, of course, before these fights happened? A win over Tony Ferguson or a win over Dan Hooker? This is before his loss to Chandler, before Ferguson's loss to Oliveira. What's worth more, a win over Ferguson or a win over Hooker? Win over Ferguson, right? By itself, it's absolutely worth more.
Yeah.
So Oliveira's win over Ferguson is worth more than Chandler's win over.
This is MMA math. There's
Hooker.
MMA
Oh,
math,
no,
and then
and
there's the math grad student MMA math.
But then Noah Chandler, that's his only win. That's his only fight in the 155-pound division.
Yeah.
Oliveira is on a 7-fight winning streak
Yeah,
before
yeah.
the Tony Ferguson fight. He gets
You put it that way.
a 7-fight 155-pound division. Then the 8th one is a win over Tony Ferguson. How is that less than a single win over Dan
you're
Hooker?
right.
There's no discussion here.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. So we're settling on Dustin Oliveira, and then Gaethje Chandler.
And then Gaethje Chandler, the winner, deserves a title shot. Give it to him. And then you can do a Nate Diaz, Conor McGregor trilogy.
Oh, no. I don't want that.
Why not?
I want to see McNuggets step up to the plate against Tony Ferguson. Finally. Come on.
That would be fun.
That makes so much more sense than Conor versus Nate again. Nate, I don't think is ever going to win. I don't think they're going to put him in a position where he's going to be fighting someone where he'll ever win again, because he's only getting a big name going forward. Big names are the only people that are really going to call him out. I think that I don't think Nate Diaz is ever going to win another fight again in his career. Especially if he's trying to take on, if he's trying to take on a guy like a Dustin Porier, who he's, trying to get up on the plate now and fucking put his name forward for these guys. And all these guys are okay with fighting him. They'll do it on a moment's notice because they know it's one of the most winnable fights for them. And, everyone's going to be watching
and draws the eyes.
It's a huge draw. So Nate Diaz is just not at that level anymore. He got fucking starched, and I mean starched, by Masvidal, who, again, if you ask me, I've always been on the team Masvidal is nothing special. Nate Diaz should be anywhere near these guys. I want to see Tony Ferguson and Conor McNuggets get it on and fucking have a serious fucking battle. Finally, and let's do this.
And then the winner can fight someone that's either a Poirier or the Oliveira loser, maybe.
Maybe that's the trilogy fight after that. Yeah,
right. There's a lot of good fights out there, I think. But I would like to see Poirier Oliveira for the title.
Yes,
absolutely.
If Tony beat Conor, I would be interested. Yeah, he'd get absolutely destroyed by Poirier, but that prime Tony versus prime Poirier is an interesting one to me.
It's a great one. It's a great fight.
The most compelling fight is prime Tony versus Bathtub. You see that shit? This man is on his Instagram wrestling a bathtub. It looks like he's about to break his spine. Like he's bending backwards, holding a fucking big old porcelain tub above his head. These antics don't work as well when you're not on a massive win streak, unfortunately.
Yeah.
We'll see how he does going forward.
Tony Ferguson, the type of guy to take a bath by pouring all the water in a bathtub and then dumping it over his head.
If Poirier doesn't get in the car, he fucking hoists the car up above his head and sprints.
There is one other fight that was mentioned that is interesting. This is something that Adam brought up before he left, and he thought Conor, instead of fighting Tony, instead of fighting Nate, should fight RDA. And that's an interesting one as well. They do have history, right? They were supposed to fight once upon a time back in 2016, I believe, before RDA had that injury. That could be an interesting fight. That could be a good fight as well. I think RDA would take him down and grind him out on the ground. I think Conor could knock RDA out on the feet. To be honest, while it has a lot of history, I don't think it's the entertaining fight that Conor's looking for. It's hard to look good against RDA if you're not an elite wrestler. So I think it'll be a difficult one for Conor to really make himself shine. And if you lose against RDA, you don't look good against him. You just look like you're just grounded out, right? Grinded out. Yeah. It's not something I think that is just good for Conor's image. Yeah,
but it also, in terms of a matchup, it doesn't not make sense. Like it's not, that's not a far-fetched matchup to make, especially after RDA's last win, which I thought that was a very impressive fight.
That's true. I mean, RDA deserves it, but we'll see what happens.
We'll see. They're definitely, Conor gets a lot more opportunity to kind of be choosy over who his next fight is, more so than most other people.
Of course. Let's move on because we've been on this for a while. We had Joanne Calderwood with a beautiful 3-round masterpiece against Jessica Evil Eye. I, to be honest, don't love Jessica Eye. There's something about her just kind of rubs me the wrong way. Maybe that Jessica Evil Eye is just really kind of lame in my opinion. She kind of has.
And it's no more lame than the fucking Happy Warrior or the Cookie Monster.
The Cookie.
To be fair,
but I don't know. It's just. Her swag seems a bit fake and forced in my opinion. I'm not a big fan of it. And I kind of liked watching Joanne Calderwood just pick her apart. It was a good fight though. Joanne just always looks like she has very, very high level Muay Thai. She doesn't have a lot of movement, which is very classic of a Muay Thai fighter. She's kind of flat footed, but she has great hands. She has great kicks. She has great knees. She's overall just a really good fighter. Not a good enough fighter to beat a Valentina Shevchenko. But she's a very good fighter.
Yeah, she's up there in the she deserves to be
division.
in the top ranks there. I'd be remiss to say, I'm going to say on Adam's behalf, because he's brought this point up several times, and you mentioned the flat-footedness. Calderwood really has this interesting style where she seems like she's always kind of gassed out or tired, but then she just keeps moving forward and she keeps putting on these striking displays. So it's like a very misleading kind of matchup to watch. Because there isn't that huge mobility or footwork factor in her game. There's room for improvement, certainly, but tonight last night she was just the better fighter, more well prepared, and she put on a very nice striking clinic. It was very fun to watch. I don't have the same. I mean, I don't really know really either of these fighters that well, so I haven't had time to really get into their characters. I know there were some quotes from Calderwood saying that I don't like Jessica Eye. I don't think anyone likes Jessica Eye, which is interesting. So always nice to see a little bit of a grudge match in there. But yeah, that was a high tier WMMA matchup. Great striking, lots of fun to watch. Clearly a lot of animosity there, and it's good to see that kind of passion feed into a performance rather than take away from it.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of really good women's MMA performances, we also on the main card, kicking off the main card, we had Amanda Ribas, who the UFC was really looking to boost and promote. She had a great win over Paige Van Zandt just a couple months ago with a first round submission armbar, I believe it was. She had a really, really, really good post-fight interview, and her personality really shone through. I really like her. I think everyone really likes Amanda Ribas. They were looking to push her, and they put her up against a really tough opponent, Marina Rodriguez. And Marina and her went back and forth. It was back and forth fight. Both girls were bringing it. There was some good submission attempts from Ribas, but then in the second round, Marina caught her and put her out. Now there's a little bit of a strange finish to that fight where Herb was stepping in real close to take a closer look. They stepped in so close that Marina, and I don't even blame her, thought that Herb stopped the fight. Herb said, no, I didn't stop the fight. Marina came back in and knocked her out again.
So it's pretty funny when you watch it back, because I'm watching it back right now. But what seems to happen is, Ribas is on the ground. She's taking shots. It's coming together to be a TKO. Like it's basically a TKO at that point. She's landed like 3 or 4 clean shots to the head. She's not defending. Herb steps in to get that closer look to see like if she's still hanging in there, if her head's going limp or something, if she's like out. He picked the worst possible angle to step. 2 things happened. He picked a very bad angle to step in. He really should have been not at the same side as Rodriguez. He should have been
behind her, not between them.
Yes, exactly.
Between them,
he basically was between them. And then to add to it, it looks like Herb kind of tripped a little bit, like he slipped over his own footing a tiny bit. And honestly, I'm going to give points to Rodriguez for this, because it seems like to her, as soon as she felt Herb kind of push up against her, she got the feeling like, oh, he's pushing me off. Like he's pushing me off like they do to stop me from beating her. That's it. I'm done. And that's actually, I like that. That's a good instinct you should have to know, like, okay, the ref's stepping in. He's physically touching me. Why? What should that mean? Other than it's over.
Because it wasn't like it was a flash knockdown. Like she was knocked down. She had a few shots. She's like, all right, I'm about to finish her. All right, I'm waiting for her. She feels her. She's like, all right, we're done.
Yeah, I mean, hands up if you thought that when she walked away that Herb had called it. I thought that was it.
For a second, I did. To me like
that.
He could have, and arguably should have stopped it there.
And then
luckily he stopped it very quickly afterwards. The second she took another big shot, he stopped it, which I'm really glad he did.
Exactly.
That was awkward. That was bad. And that could have, can you imagine if Ribas somehow came back?
Oh my God, that would have been unbelievable. But it was not going to happen. You can see she goes for like
disaster, dude.
Oh yeah, she goes for like the single leg, and then Rodriguez is basically just still thinks the fight is over, so she's just walking away leisurely, and Ribas just kind of like slips off her leg and just is sitting there in fetal position, like as though she's holding a leg, and then she gets up and she's all fucking wobbly, and then she takes much more damage than she would have had to if her but this isn't like an egregious, this is straight up, I think, some kind of funny anomalous situation where it started with her making a very minor misjudgment of where he should be position wise, and then he sort of tripped over himself.
Yeah, Herb's had a bit of a history recently of a lot of fuck ups, so hopefully he can put that to bed. But yeah, that was a bit of a weird one. We also had a really good fight with Arman Tsarukyan against Matt Frevola.
Oh man, what a fight that was!
That was a really fun fight. I thought Arman was gonna run over him. Arman has some of the craziest wrestling transitions, some of the best scrambling abilities I've ever seen in the UFC. That fight with Islam Makhachev was just a masterpiece in wrestling scrambling. And this one also, he put together some great scrambling ability there.
Frevola was really the one like hitting some phenomenal scrambles during this fight himself. He was in my eyes watching the fight, he was the scrambler. He was the one who was like getting these interesting ground transitions and like moving himself out of these dangerous wrestling positions. He was definitely on the back foot a little bit there, but he was, very, really chaining together some interesting defensive transitions. And it was an absolute joy to watch, that level of wrestling. I can't believe how close these guys were. Like they were really neck and neck. Part of something I don't like about the decision, and there's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing you can do. But a 30-27, a 30-27 is a 30-27, whether it's one guy edging out another person for 3 rounds, or it's someone putting on a clinic and absolutely annihilating them for 3 rounds, but not finishing it off. It feels a little misleading because, like in this case, even I don't know about 30-27. I gave it a 29-28. I thought that Frevola took the first round. That was my opinion. Yeah. The judges, I thought, were actually a little bit off tonight. The judgments weren't egregiously bad, but I think that when someone was like a little bit dominant, they gave them like maybe an extra round, right? Like they gave them more rounds than I thought they should.
Yeah, I will say, so the only real solution to what you're saying with that whole, it's to change the MMA scoring. And to make it, instead of 10-9s, make it like a 10-9 when it's a really close round. When it's like someone clearly wins, it's 10-8. When someone gets dominated, it's 10-7. When someone gets knocked almost just like nowadays 10-8, it's a 10-6. And then you can actually have a much better balanced scoring. That's just not how it works right now. Yeah.
Well, because the judges themselves also, they're like boxing judges and shit. But they don't know the specifics enough that I would even trust them for that.
Yeah, so the more leeway you give to the scoring, the more leeway there is for fuck up. So like what if one judge thinks that one guy dominated on the feet and then the other guy almost got some submissions but didn't? What if they're like, well, the submissions, they didn't get them, so that means nothing. So it's a 10-6 for the guy that dominated on the feet. And other guys like, well, he almost got the submissions. He dominated on the ground. The other guy dominated on the feet. Okay, 10-9 for the guy on the feet. Now you have a way bigger gap between the judges and a way bigger.
It just makes it.
Yeah, so it's a really complicated problem to solve.
I mean, really, but it's almost not, because wouldn't the solution be start from the bottom up and start training new judges specifically for MMA?
You need
and stop using these.
No, but
I know that there's like by law they have to. I know, there's that, and you also need, the athletic commissions are very much like built deep into the foundations of like, combat sports, and have it. That's why we have these boxing, fucking judges judging MMA that they have no business, scoring. They need to. It's a long-term solution though. You can't just train people. You can't create a new scoring system and then train people to understand it overnight.
So it's 2 things. First of all, it's not really boxing judges anymore. It used to be, but nowadays it's not just boxing judges. It is MMA judges. However, the problem is that they just don't have a pool of people that actually want to be MMA judges. No one wants to be an MMA judge. You're not paid enough. It's too much work. You're moving around a lot. No, Dana doesn't. No. Dana doesn't pay. That's not Dana. That can't be Dana. If Dana paid the judges, it would be a conflict of interest. That would be illegal. That would be like because the promoter.
Oh yeah, I can see that being some
right?
shady shit
You
getting
can't
in there,
pay the
especially
judges.
Dana. I wouldn't trust that motherfucker not to rig fights.
No, the commissions are the ones that pay the referees, and the commissions are the ones that pay
Damn
the judges.
commission.
The commission are the ones that right. So these guys are paid like $1,500 an event. Can you imagine? Would you really want to take $1,500 to have all of that pressure on you?
Roy,
it's a lot of pressure.
You're asking at the worst time. Right now, at this point in time, I would do a lot of things for $1,500.
But do you understand, like the 1.5 million pay-per-view people watching pay-per-view, judging,
I hear that,
and you're judging 10, 15. You're judging 10 fights.
No matter what you do, your social media, you're getting
actually
doxed,
no. Think of it this way: you're being paid $150 a fight or $50 a round.
Yeah,
that's not fair.
Yeah,
that's not a lot of money.
Well, I mean, it's not a lot of money.
It's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure.
Actually, no, I mean, that's kind of like a shit ton of money, though, if you're thinking about like an hourly pay. You know, if they're just there for 6 hours and you get $1,500. Shit. Okay, you know
There's
what?
a lot of work behind the scenes.
I've changed my mind. I will take on this burden, and I will be Sal D'Amato. I'm coming for your job.
All right, let's see it.
Dan Cartledge, whatever. I'm coming for your job.
All right. Let's move on. The last fight you wanted to talk about is the Sanchez versus Muradov fight. Muradov got that finish with those getting Sanchez on chicken legs at the end. That was crazy.
That's it. We don't need to talk about anything else in that fight. That finish was one of the most like outrageous things I've ever seen. It's like, I think he hit him like kind of behind the ear and it totally fucked his equilibrium. It was like he was on twinkle toes. It was like he was like a, like when the cartoon characters like Scooby-Doo, like before they would start running, they would like run in place for a second and then they take off. That's like what he did there. He like got hit and then he was all over the place.
It was like Kevin Lee against Barboza. It was like Whitaker against Romero. It was a lot. It was bad.
When you get poked in just the right brain spot and you lose all your ability to, all motor function, basically.
No, it's actually not that. It's when you get hit just hard enough that you lose a ton of it, but not quite hard enough that you lose it all. So you're able to stay on your feet, but not in any normal way.
Yeah, it's like he had control of his calves, but he didn't have control of his knees.
Exactly.
But yeah, that was it's not funny. It's serious. He was hurt and his brain took some damage, but it was very funny at the same time. It was very funny.
Well, another thing that's very funny, but very serious. Now we're moving a little bit into the news. That was a great night once again. Congratulations to all the winners. Into the news, honestly, my opinion, this is the winner of the MMA Darwin Awards 2021.
This is
100%.
Yeah, in January, and he already has the fuck up of the year.
Oh my god!
What a legend.
Ottman Azaitar, our Megamind from one of our first ever 100 view clips. I know
I put that motherfucker on. I put him on. Where would he be without this? Without everything we've got going on here?
Ottman Azaitar was supposed to be the one that was fighting Matt Favola. However, against wasn't Matt Favola he was supposed to fight, was it? He was supposed to fight.
I don't remember.
No, maybe it was Matt Favola. It was Matt Favola. Yes.
Yeah, because it would have been
Ottman was supposed to fight Favola, and yet he gets cut from the UFC. Why? This man gives another man his wristband to sneak into the bubble with a bag of I don't know what. They haven't really said what that bag is. The man gets
we're going to
caught.
Speculate about it wildly in a moment.
Well, wildly for sure. And he let the man into the bubble, risking a $150 million event easily. Right? Think about 1.5 million buys is $100 million in sales, plus all the ESPN money, plus all the ad revenue, plus the money that they were paid by Abu Dhabi to come there. This is $150 million easily that they risked by this fuck up.
Can I just? He's never going to fight anywhere ever again.
He might go in Bellator. Might take him in Bellator.
Do you think that they'd be willing to take that liability in
the
news?
So no, there was a guy, I forget who it was, I forget his name. But he punched a guy after the bell. The fight was over and like they separated and he walked up to the guy he had just fought and punched him in the face. Like
was that the guy who was fight? Was that the Koscheck fight? Wasn't that Koscheck got punched after? And to be fair, he deserves it.
Yes. I believe so.
Deserves to get suckered on the street.
That guy gets immediately kicked out of the UFC and is currently still a Bellator fighter.
So I see that as a different scenario because what
I think
this
it's worse.
shows.
That's worse.
Well, here's the thing. Well, it's about putting yourself in the mindset of the people who run these organizations and like the bosses of the fighters. What they would see in this scenario, I would imagine, is Dana White, cutthroat businessman who keeps his fighters on such a short leash that they can't really do much without his, attention and his, like they listen to him. He's a scary guy to these guys. And Ottman didn't give a fuck. He broke like the biggest, most important rule he could and totally made like a fool out of Dana White publicly by doing this. I think that these other organizations will see.
No, he didn't do it.
This guy could be like a bit of a liability. This guy could be causing trouble, internally.
To be fair, he didn't make a public fool of Dana because, in fact, even when Dana said it, Dana was the one that actually announced what happened. They said, "Are we telling the story?"
I know that, but I
didn't
mean,
have to say what happened.
Imagine if he spread COVID in this event. Imagine how devastating that would have been for Dana, for the entire UFC brand, and directly for Dana.
Oh, for sure.
Especially when they're just starting to get crowds in there. Like it's
you're not wrong.
It's the potential. It's the potential for something bad.
I
just
know,
because
but
that didn't happen, it could have been much worse.
And that for that reason, it justifies him getting cut. But I don't think it's going to stop him from getting signed from another organization because, especially, they're not going to have COVID protocols forever.
Maybe we'll see.
And he probably learned his lesson, right?
Maybe. I mean, anti-maxers and shit don't often.
No. Doesn't matter. He learned his lesson in terms of how serious of a fuck up that was, and he's gonna walk. Even doesn't matter if he believes in it. He's gonna toe the line from now on. Wherever else he signed, he would have had to learn your lesson from that.
I think that I could see him never fighting. I think that a lot of people would see, you sign him, and suddenly in the news, it's like, Bellator signs guy who fucking compromised the entire UFC event.
I don't think so because nothing happened. Because if something had happened, I agree. Because nothing happened, I think you'll be okay. But I guess we'll find out. We'll see.
We'll wait and see. So here's the question, though. What was so important in that bag that he needed it to be delivered to him from a man climbing up like windows and balconies, from what Dana White was saying?
Apparently it was something along the lines of like they were trying to like fuck with Conor McGregor or something.
I've heard different rumors. I've heard different rumors. I haven't heard anything confirmed. So I'll give some speculation as to what I've heard, and then I'll say what I think it was. And I'm most likely wrong. In fact, we're most likely, it was probably like his lucky fucking sweatshirt or something. I don't know. But so yeah, I've heard that people say he was gonna like try and fuck with Conor McGregor and do some kind of weird sabotage, which is so weird, so strange. Also, I find it very funny imagining that he planned to do all this, have like a whole bag just to fucking fuck Conor over, and then he leaves it at home. I find that funny. That's all. So that's also an element of it. He clearly forgot something that was so important to him that he needed someone to sneak it in.
He could have just taken the bag from the dude.
He needed to be like snuck in. Like, why didn't he?
So he didn't forget it.
Why didn't?
Because he didn't forget it. He didn't forget it. He planned to get it in, but he didn't forget it. Right?
So otherwise he would. So maybe if he just forgot it, he would have brought it in himself. He would have been in trouble or something. You think?
Well, I'm saying if the case, if it was for him, then if he had just forgotten it, he would have just taken it. If it was for him, if it wasn't, maybe I think it was something not about him. I don't think it was his stuff. I think he helped someone else do something. I think it was unrelated to Ottman. I think the other guy had a thing, and he maybe paid Ottman or something for the wristband and to let him do his whatever.
Yeah, man.
That was my understanding.
So I wonder. I think that one of the simplest theories that I've heard that seems like the most, could have some, the most credibility to it, is if he, some people have been saying maybe he was sneaking in some kind of performance enhancer or something like that, which would be really weird, like the day before the fight to just start taking PEDs. I don't even know if they would take effect that fast. So that makes no sense to me. What maybe makes a little sense is what if they were, and I'm going to give credit to my girlfriend for bringing up this idea, because what if they had brought in some kind of like a laxative or something that might have helped him make weight, something that in that last minute you could take a laxative the day before you have to make weight, and you can cut a good couple of pounds.
So here's the thing, that would not have been hard for him to bring in. The only thing that's hard about that is to hide it from the testing. But it's not hard to bring in. And that's
So
A and B. And why is the other guy bringing it in? And why is the other guy, by the way, went into Ottman's suite and then from Ottman's suite climbed the balcony to other suites? So that's what doesn't make sense to me. I think he was trying to go to, I don't understand.
I think he knocked on the wrong, he ended up in the wrong balcony, got the wrong one. No, I don't know. It's so weird, and I don't know if we're ever going to really find out what exactly the story is here. But either way, suffice to say, he wanted something that was. Oh, apologies! I just received a text from a obvious scam that's telling me that I'm going to get 1,300 USD. I'm not even in the US. Suffice to say, he wanted something that he couldn't bring in there himself. Maybe out of risk that if he got caught bringing something in, that he would have been in trouble or something. I don't know.
Or his friend, or someone paid him something else. Or someone else wanted something. So we have no idea. Yeah. I don't think it's really worth talking too much more about.
But it's just such a weird situation it's highly notable, and I think it's going to be a moment that we remember for the rest of the year.
Yeah. In other news, Nick Lentz, also on this card, took a bit of a beating. To be honest, he looked pretty fucked up. And has now subsequently announced his retirement from MMA. He has taken a bunch of eye injuries in the past, and he's not quite the same. He doesn't want to lose his eyesight. Somewhat this being Ian.
Yeah, from what he said, he's lost a good deal of his eyesight already in the last year. This was a fight to just see, despite those injuries, if I could stand up there. And he just says, he's not as effective against a moving target at this point. It's not going to work. And I'll be honest. I don't really know the guy. I haven't followed him closely, but you look him up, and he's been in the UFC for about 11 years now. I think he's been 12 years. He's been in there since 2009, I believe. So he's a real veteran who unfortunately has succumbed to his damage. And this is the reality of the sport for a lot of guys that aren't like at the very, very, very top. And even this, it'll happen to the guys at the very, very top unless they leave like Khabib did. And it's very hard for people to leave when they're clearly in their prime. They want to keep going. But eventually, this is the kind of damage that you take. I mean, look at even Ali couldn't escape it, the neurological damage that came with taking this damage. And I love fighting. I love at UFC. I love watching the fights. I love it from a technical aspect. I love it from a visceral aspect. But it's irresponsible to ignore that this is the reality. This is what, becomes of a lot of these fighters, and kind of bleeds in, not to beat a dead horse as I, have in the past, but it kind of bleeds into I want these guys to be compensated more. I want them to be able to retire and not have to work day jobs after taking this crazy amount of, like, how many former fighters who just took too much damage and couldn't really get anywhere are like working like janitorial jobs and shit like that right now because their brain's not in a place where they can do something that's highly skilled.
Honestly, I don't know the answer to that question at all, so I don't want to talk about that.
Neither do I. It's speculation again, but
it's speculation. I think it's something you need stats for, but I mean, obviously you need to pay them more. That goes without question.
Yeah.
But
that very sad. We're gonna miss you, man. I didn't really know who you were, but
apparently not. Really.
Your presence will be missed.
Well, fights that are being booked, we now have Tyron Woodley making his comeback fight against Vicente Luque. This is a tough fight for Woodley. He hasn't looked. The one thing I do like about this fight is that we can at least finally get an idea of is it the wrestling that's fucking with Woodley, or is it a guy, or is he not the striker he was either? This is the fight where he'll have to mix in the wrestling and the striking. He doesn't need to worry about it being taken down. We can really see, is Woodley who he thinks he is? Is he still who he used to be? Or is he now ready to take a step back and retire maybe?
Yeah. If you want my advice, bet the house on Vicente.
I think it's a good.
I don't think Woodley's all in it to win it anymore. He should stick to his acting career or his music career, both of which have been, as we know, very successful ventures.
Yeah. In addition, we do have all 5 title fights are official for our March pay-per-views on
March Madness,
really. So we are very excited for those amazing pay-per-view cards on, I believe, March 6th and March 27th, I think. So I believe those are those are the cards. So I'm very excited for those 2 nights, including the heavyweight championship of the world, the light heavyweight championship of the world, and many more. So that is awesome.
Can I just say before March, I think that between you and me, I think we should maybe get a trademark out there. I'm thinking March Madness, but the madness is MMA adness. We should patent that. Actually, you know what? Strike this from the podcast because I don't want anyone else to fucking steal our thunder there. But seriously, we're going to patent that. We're going to take it, and Dana White is going to see it, and he's going to finally be like, A, I'm going to pay these guys for this patent. B, I'm coming on their podcast.
It's like UFC for Fight Island.
You see, he likes that kind of shit. He likes it. And, you know, he has the track record of someone else coming up with it, and then he takes it. So that's why we need to patent it right now, because I have no doubt he's watching us. He's wiretapped our phones. He is in our houses with the cameras and shit. He knows. So we need to make sure that we get on this as soon as possible.
All right. Well, last thing to talk about before we move on into next week, or I guess there is no card next week, so there's nothing to talk about for next week, but is the pay-per-view issues. After Dana talks so much shit about taking down the illegal streamers, apparently he took down the legal ones as well. The ESPN app was not doing so well, which really was pissing a lot of celebrities off. A lot of high-profile athletes were tweeting about it, so that's interesting.
That's bad for Dana. That's very bad for Bizzit. First off, it makes him look like an ass because he's out here talking about, you know, these fucking streamers ruining shit for him, and then he can't even get his, you know, biggest fight of the year on time, and then you got all these big names drawing attention. It's just gonna make more people go, you know, into streaming. I always like to see, you know, the people who say like they're shocked by the quality. That I wouldn't know because I've never once streamed a fight in my life. I want to be very clear about this. I've never once streamed a fight ever. I've never even torrented because I don't steal things.
Yes. However, moving on.
But I've heard that the quality is extremely high on these streams. They, full HD. You know, you get to watch the whole thing, no problem, no fuss, no muss. So I'm not surprised that, you know, when you get a fuck up like this, especially, that people are going to be drawn towards that. And it just couldn't have happened at a more inconvenient time for Dana when he's talking all this shit that I'm going to say are lies about taking down streamers. Like I said, made a little joke back there, if you might have caught that, about wiretapping people and shit. He said he was listening to like one streamer's like phone calls and like had their ass and like knew who they were.
I did not hear about
lies.
This, but damn.
Oh, he said that in an interview. He's like, we've got him. Like, we were wiretapping him. We're listening to his calls. That's a verbatim quote is him saying they're listening to his phone calls. I didn't hear about the wiretap,
but okay, damn.
It's outrageous. He's lying. He's lying through his teeth.
That seems,
larger,
I don't know.
Bigger companies worth far more money have invested far more in taking down pirating and streaming and whatever. But listen, if EA can't stop people from torrenting the Sims, Dana White can't stop anyone from streaming these fights. We don't need to get into the technical aspects of it, but anyone who knows anything knows that what Dana is proposing that he will do and that he is currently doing is fucking impossible.
Yep. Well, we'll see what happens with that. If these streams, I'm sure they will continue, but
yeah, of course it won't impact us because we watch the fights fair and square.
Yeah. So we'll see what if Dana ever wins his stupid game of whack-a-mole. He insists on playing that he'll never win. Regardless, the fights will be back on February 6th. That will be a fun fight of Overeem against Volkov. There are no other fights that are announced officially for that card yet, so that is the only fight. It's going to be a fun one, but we'll cover it probably next week. We'll probably still do an episode next week. We'll find out exactly. We'll probably be back. If not, we'll definitely be back on February 7th. Anything else to add in?
I am being blessed with an Overeem fight on my birthday.
There you go.
If Overeem loses, it's going to ruin my birthday. So
February
Alistair
7th.
Overeem, you better not ruin my fucking birthday.
So tune in February 7th because win or lose, Noah either extremely happy or extremely angry and ranty is very entertaining. And so definitely tune in that day. We'll probably see you.
I'm glad you take pleasure from my pain, Roey.
We'll see you on the 31st as well. Next Sunday. We'll be back.
We got a lot of fun stuff coming up. I'm super excited. It's gonna be madness. Boom, threw that shit in there.
Well, for Adam, for Noah, I am Roey. This has been the SmeshCast. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week.
Oh yeah.